Hello, this is Melvin, and in this screencast, we're going to be going over MySQL in PHP. So basically, just to clarify a few things before we start, you're probably wondering what is MySQL. If I pull this up here, MySQL is basically just a way of storing data and using it most popularly on the web. So from there, you just connect to it and use info on the page. But a few tools you're going to need for this is, obviously, if you watch the very first tutorial, you know about WAMP server. And WAMP server, if you're on your localhost page, you'll see this welcome page, and you can just click on PHP My Admin. This is a very popular web MySQL database management tool. So basically, or if you don't have that, you can just go to /phpMyAdmin and localhost. So this is a whole thing in itself. I'm just going to go over the basics of creating a database, inserting values, editing values, and then from there we will go over all the different types of elements. Now this will probably be split up into about 2 or 3 parts. Just this part about PHPMyAdmin and getting data from a database. And the next tutorial about create, update, and delete, in which we would split into 2 parts, cover creating and updating in one part, and deleting and other forms of application we can use this in the third part. But that's for later on. So let's just go ahead and create a database, and we will call it let's just call it MySQL tut. And for collation, this is very, very important. By default, I think WAMP server is set to UTF general CI right here. So just make sure these two are the same, or else you will get errors. Not very often, but they can get errors, and they're very, very annoying. So just go ahead and set this to some sort of UTF-8, and we'll just hit create. And we have our database. Now, if we go into our database, right here, we'll see create a new table for the database MySQL tut. Now, you have a database, but the info, the meat of a database, is tables. So we'll just go ahead and create a default test table here called people with 3 fields, just their first name and their description. And the third variable will be what we call an ID, and I'll go over that while we're creating it. So if we hit go, now what we see is a form like this, and so it's just here's a column, here's a column, and here's a column. So in this first field, we're going to make a variable called ID, and the type is going to be an integer. And for down here by index, you want to set it to primary key, and auto increment is yes. Now what this does is it allows us to create an identifier for every single record in the database, so we can go in and access it from anywhere. That was a bad explanation, but you can basically, if you're saying you're in PHP, you want to say, how are you going to target something? If you want to target a specific row of data, you have to find some way to identify it. So you would say where the ID equals ID whatever, and then it would pull the user where the row ID is 7, for example. So I'll explain that later while we're actually doing this. But so right now we'll just do user. We'll put name for this box. It's going to be a var. Now if we drop down this doc box, we're going to use a varchar. There's a lot of different types in here, but we're just going to stick with varchar for now, since it's just text. So we'll put that limit of 25. That's a really long name if it's 25 letters long. But and right here we'll put description. And this will also be a varchar. And we'll make this 50. Let's make it 150. Alright. So we have all of our information set up for our database. Now we'll just hit save. Now in the second part, we're going to go over inserting data into the database, but we're just going to go ahead and add just your basic in PHPMyAdmin. Click the insert tab, and we're just going to add some info. We can leave ID blank since it's an auto increment. It'll increment automatically according to the previous value every time we update the database. So we'll just go ahead and put in a couple dummy test people. We'll put Bob. Bob is a cool guy that lives in Arizona. Jeez, cannot spell today. Likes iced tea. And make another guy named Jeff. Jeff likes to jump rope after school with his friends. Okay, so we just have some dummy data in here. Very weird descriptions, I know. So we'll just go down here and hit go. And there we go. We have created our database. And now if you look here, this is the type of code you'd have to type in order to do this query, which is it's not bad in a sense, but it's just helpful that you don't need to have to type that every time you want to insert a value. We can do it through a graphical interface. So if we go to browse, we will see our 2 records. And like I said, here's that ID from earlier. We have 1 and 2 for Bob and Jeff. And so say, for example, we're in a PHP file and we wanted to select Jeff. We do select all, where either the first name is Jeff or where the ID is 2. ID 2 will be a lot more specific, since there can be like 4 people named Jeff. But so that's just a thing I'll explain later on. So we have our database created. Now the whole point of this is connecting to it in PHP. So what I've done here is I've just created a folder, my localhost server called MySQL tut, and in the index.php file we're going to practice good coding, and we're going to make a new folder within this project and call it includes, and then inside there we're going to create a new PHP file and call it connection.php. Now in PHP, when you're connecting to PHP, you'll see all the code we have to type just to connect to a database is pretty dirty. So if we had to type that every single time we wanted to connect, that'd be very inconvenient, and it'd be very sloppy and make your code all messy. So if you're working in like a project setting with a lot of people, you don't want to have your code messy and hard to read. You want to be able so everybody can just pop in, make a change, and be out. So in here we're just going to do our regular old PHP. So we'll do includes / connection.php. Alright, so we have our connection.php file, and then so from here we'll just go down here. Now our connection. Our connection involves a couple variables, one of which is called dbHost. These variables, by the way, can be named anything you want as long as you're passing them into the function in the right order. So dbHost is just the name I'm going to use, is the server that your database is hosted on. Most likely it's going to be localhost. If not, consult your server admin about that. And we'll put dbuser equals the user that you're going to use to log into the database. And by default with a WAMP, the user is root with no password. And then we'll put db equals MySQL tut, because that's the name of the database we created. So we will go down here and create a variable called con. And once again, that can be called anything you want. And in this con variable, we will say MySQL connect. Then we'll tell it what host to connect to, and then also what user to use and what password to use for that user. There we go. So we have our connection set up. Now in our index.php file, we want to actually grab the data from the database. So we will hop into here and let's go ahead and type in Q, or I'll just type in query to avoid confusion. So what connects to a MySQL database is called a query, and this is how you get information. We're just going to be grabbing information, and I'll go over how to target specific information, but we're just going to do for now, we're just going to grab everything from the table. So we're going to type in select all, which is a star, and then we'll do from, and then our table name, which I already forgot, people. So basically, we're just telling it select everything from the table people. Okay, so now we have that set up. We're going to put result, and this is, once again, this can be anything, but result is just the way I learned to code. So For result, we will do MySQL query and pass in our query variable. Basically, that's just going to say, okay, connect to the database that we connected to in the connection.php file and run this query. Basically, get everything from the people table. And what this will do is it will return the values within that table. Alright, now before we do anything, the main thing we want to do here in the connection is, obviously, we did not connect to the actual database, so we need to do MySQL underscore select DB, and then just pass in that database variable. Because what we did here is we connected to the server, but we did not actually select the database, so that's a very important step, so don't forget that. This is very, very important. So now back in our index.php file, we can actually display the data from the database. And to do that, what we do is we set up something called a loop, a while loop, basically. So what we'll do here is we'll do while, and we're going to do person equals MySQL underscore fetch underscore array, and then we're going to pass in our result variable. So basically, we're going to say, basically what this says is as long as there's data, output the data. That's basically all we're saying right now. This query result is executing the query, and we're going to turn that into an array using MySQL underscore fetch array. And turning that into an array puts into a format PHP can read and display onto the page for users to read. So we'll just, for example here, we'll echo an h3 tag with the person's name. So we'll do person, because that's the that is our array container. Person equals the array of the result, and the way arrays work in PHP is the array and then the column name of the info you want to get. We'll close that h3 tag, and there's our echo. So now for every person we have, it's going to output in h3 Bob and Jeff. Those are our two users. Now we could also, for kicks, just echo before that. Right here we could just put something like, let's see, something smaller. Actually, no, never mind. It's a block element. We can't do that. Just more CSS. Okay, so below that we will add some more information by echoing the description. We'll do the person array and the column description. And then we'll add a closing p tag. And now if we go to the page and refresh, you can see we have Bob, this really cool guy who lives in Arizona and likes iced tea. Jeff likes to jump rope after school with his friends. That's the exact same information from the data table, as you can see here. Not an HTML page. Really cool stuff. So we have a little bit of extra time, so I'm going to go over using a form to insert data into a URL, not a URL, but into our database. So this page is all fine and dandy. We will add just for kicks up here, h1 create a user. And the cool thing about PHP pages is they don't need to be their own page. You can integrate them with HTML. So like, say you wanted to output something inside of a link URL, you could do that. It's all dynamic. You can use it throughout an HTML page, as long as the file extension is .php. So we're going to set up a form here, give it an action of create.php, and a method of post. So basically it's just going to say post all this data to the create.php page. And inside of here we'll have an input, type equals text, name equals input name, and a value of nothing. So there's 1, I'm just going to add one for the description. Let's make it input DASC. Alright, so we have two text boxes, and we'll add a line break here. And input type equals submit. Name equals submit. This submit button is what's going to say, hey, send the form off to the PHP page. So we're just going to go ahead and create a new PHP file. We're going to call it create.php. Now we'll just go ahead and include our connection.php. Includes /connection.php. And we'll go ahead and set up a query. Actually, no, first we need to declare our variables. So we'll say name equals super global post input name. Now, if you have no idea what this is basically just getting the information from the form and putting it in this data and setting it to a PHP table. So just look at the last video or two and you'll understand all of this. Okay, so we have those declared. Now we're going to do an if statement. So just in case somebody somehow ends up on this page, it just doesn't go inserting blank variables into our database. We don't want that. We only want them here if they actually submitted the form. So we're going to say if exclamation point, which means this is not true. We're going to say if not true, if submit has not been sent, we're going to echo please fill out the form. And then we can do redirect to back to the back to the home page where they can actually insert that information. Location. If I can spell index.php. Okay, so basically that's just going to take them back to the index.php page. Now, else, basically, if it is true, we're just going to continue like normal. So what we'll do is we'll do we'll just do MySQL query equals, and we're just going to create a query that inserts stuff into MySQL. Now, there's a lot of different types of MySQL queries, so if you're confused, there's a cool website called tyzag.com with a lot of MySQL and Flash and all these sorts of resources, but they have all the different types of queries. We're using the insert query. There's just all of that for you up on that site. So if you ever get stuck, just go ahead and check out that site. Alrighty, so we refresh this page. We have our create a user form with no labels. Let's go ahead and add those. It'll say name, add a line break, description. Okay, there we go. We have our name and description boxes. So we're going to start writing the query to insert the data into this database. So we're just going to say insert into, and we're going to put our table name, which is people, and we're going to tell it what values to insert. So we're going to put backtick ID, backtick, comma, and the backtick is the number next to the 1, is the thing to the left of the 1 on the top row of numbers on your keyboard. It's kind of hard to find, but it's necessary. Name and backtick, description, backtick, and then we will. This is just me formatting my code and being kind of anal about things like that. But we're going to put values, and then in parentheses here we're going to just put null for our ID, since that's auto incrementing. It does it on its own. We don't need to put it in. Then we'll do super global post, and be careful here. You do not need the single quotes inside of it to include the variable. We're just going to actually no, we don't even need that. Never mind. We have our variable set. We can just put name, then DASC. But say for example you were using a super global in here. Say instead of this we were doing post DESC. Normally, we would have those single quotes in there to quote that out as an array, but we can just put in DESC since we're already inside of quotation marks. But right now, we already have those variables declared up here, so don't forget that semicolon. It can help keep your code clean while doing that. So we have our insert query set up. Now we'll echo user has been added. Now we'll do a redirect to the home page. Okay, so we have that, and then here also in our query we will put or die MySQL underscore error. So basically it says, hey, perform this query or go die, and tell me what the error is. Alright, what is our error right here? Syntax error, unexpected name. Oh, we need to comment these out. Wait, no. They need to be in single quotes, because these are strings. And then we will do our little concatenation trick. Alright, what's going on now? Syntax error. Oh, that's why we have an extra. All right, that's what was weird. All right, now we can get rid of so much of this code. It's just unnecessary. Sorry, this is kind of. Oh, jeez. Okay, so I had a little brain fart there. When we're inserting something into a MySQL database, it's not, when you're doing MySQL queries, it's not equals, it's just parentheses, and then your query, so it ends here. So we are going to tell it. Wait, no, that is an error right there. Okay, now it's clean. Okay, so we have our MySQL query. It says insert into our table of people. And then these are the values we're inserting with the backticks around them, and a comma separating them. And then the values we're inserting in that table are null for the ID, since that's an auto increment, and just name and description. These have single quotes around them because they are strings. We need you need to separate those with the single quotes, because if you're just putting that information there, it thinks it's some sort of encrypted thing, not a string. It's just simple name or description that we're sending it. So we have that, and if that doesn't work, it'll tell us we have an error. So if we go ahead and try and run this, we will just put in a person. Let's add Melvin. Is awesome. Let's submit query. And there we go. It has added our user. And the reason we don't see anything is because it's redirecting us to the home page, which I guess is an unnecessary HTTP request, but I'll go over that in a tutorial like Ajax or something. So I hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.